All right, let's dive in. Today, we are tackling one of the biggest questions you can possibly ask. Did everything, all of this, come from something? Or did it all just pop out of nothing? We're going to break down a specific author's argument for what's called a first cause, and it all kicks off with this one really provocative idea. So, here it is. This is the core idea we're going to explore, and you'll see how the author completely flips a common assumption on its head. The argument is that believing our entire universe just sprang from absolutely nothing, well, that requires a bigger leap of faith than believing in a creator. Kind of wild, right? Okay, but why? Why would anyone make a claim that bold? I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? It feels so counterintuitive. So let's do this. Let's follow the author's train of thought, step by step, and see exactly how they build this case. Now, what's interesting is where the author starts. They don't jump into, heavy abstract philosophy or complex theology. Nope. Instead, the whole argument is grounded in something much simpler. Just looking around. Direct observation of the world we all live in. And this quote really lays the foundation. The idea is, when you look at the world, you don't just see a bunch of random particles bumping into each other, right? You see patterns, you see systems, an underlying order. I mean, think about the perfect symmetry of a snowflake or the incredibly delicate balance of an ecosystem. The author's point is, stuff like that doesn't just happen. And here's the crucial logical leap. If we see all this order, this balance, isn't it reasonable to think there's some intention behind it? The author uses an analogy. Just like a painting implies a painter, a universe with this much order, well, that implies an orchestrator. So this simple observation basically puts us at a fork in the road. It leaves us with two totally different ways to explain our existence. And the author lays out these two competing stories and kind of asks us, hey, which one of these makes more sense with what you actually see? Okay, so on one side, you've got the idea that the universe is just a cosmic accident, a random event. Everything we see, from stars to us, just exploded into being from absolute nothingness, with no guiding principle at all. Then, on the other side, you've got the idea that all the order we see is actually the result of an intentional, creative source. And the author says the evidence for this order is literally everywhere you look. Think about the mathematical harmony in music, or the biological precision of a flower. I mean, even the basic laws of nature that keep planets in their orbits. The argument is that these aren't just random flukes. They're all examples of an underlying structure, and that structure itself needs some kind of explanation. Okay, so this whole idea naturally brings up the biggest, most common counterargument you can think of. It's the question that everyone considering this has to wrestle with at some point. Right. It's the ultimate what came before question. Our brains are wired for cause and effect, so it's a totally natural question to ask. But the author argues that it's a question based on a misunderstanding of what a creator would even be. So here's how the author tackles it. The creator isn't thought of as just another thing in our universe, like a planet or a star that you could point to. No. The idea here is that the creator is the very foundation for the universe, the ground of all being itself. And the logic goes like this. If a creator is the source of everything, then that has to include space and time, right? So asking what came before the creator, well, it's kind of like asking what's north of the North Pole. The question itself just doesn't make sense for something that exists outside the very timeline it created. So after laying out these two different paths and dealing with that huge counterargument, the author brings it all the way back around to that first, pretty provocative claim about faith. And this is where we land. The author concludes that believing our incredibly complex, finely tuned universe just spontaneously burst into existence from absolute nothing, with no laws, no potential, no anything, is actually the harder thing to believe. From this perspective, that's the bigger miracle. And in the end, the author doesn't just demand that you believe one way or the other. Instead, it ends with a reflection on how this whole perspective changes what we're even searching for. So if you accept this premise, the whole journey changes. It stops being just an intellectual puzzle, trying to understand nothing, and it becomes something more about trying to know the one who is the origin of everything. And that's the final question the author leaves us to think about. If all of this isn't just a random accident, if it's an act of intention, then what does it really mean to seek out that source? That's a big one to chew on. Thanks for joining me.